Being that I'm an innovation coordinator and I work with DHA Innovation, it's always exciting to see our products grow wings and take off in VA. So I'm speaking today about a brand new product called PseudoVet. And to give you a little background, I've been with VA for 17 years. I am working with VHA Innovation Program. We were the first innovation program in VA. PseudoVet is going to be developed between several partners. It was just awarded 2 weeks ago, and we had our kickoff call yesterday. The partners are VHA Innovation, NASA, Harvard, Future Technology Laboratory, which is our external-facing AWS or Amazon Web Services supported cloud for developers. Both internal and external developers can use that. I see Ignacio on the call. Ma'am?
Just to tell you, we're at the one that says Explorers Warranted. Are we just way behind, or are we where you want?
Great. We're cool. That's me. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. All right, gang.
Yes, now it's working.
Great. Okay. I see Ignacio on the call. Hey, Ignacio. We did some work back in 2010, 2011 on something called Aware. And he's no stranger to FTL, although FTL was a difficult thing to traverse back in its birth. It's quite robust now, and we're building all kinds of products out of there. And then our other partner is VACI, or the VA Center for Innovation, and they're based out of DC. VACI provides funding for PseudoVet. VHA Innovation is providing the technical SMEs and clinical SMEs platforms for development. And then NASA, in tandem with Harvard, have helped us with requirements, and NASA also is the contract vehicle, the NASA IDIQ for competition. So I'll give you a little background of the problem. What is PseudoVet? PseudoVet is an automated patient data fabrication engine that will be used by software developers at VA. It will provide a set of active synthetic patients and clinical data that can be used for healthcare or software development. The development against real patient data unnecessarily exposes patient health information, or PHI, and personally identifiable information, or PII, which you're all aware of, cannot be used by developers outside of the VA. However, fully functional, realistic data sets could be used safely in a development, testing, training, and other non-production environments in compliance with the Health Information Technology for Economical and Clinical Health Act, or the HITECH Act, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and other similar regulations. So the problem is we have development against current fabricated data is not useful because the data sets are outdated, which requires developer teams to spend time developing data sets to use in lieu of writing code, or require licenses that can't be shared. The VHA Innovation has always utilized synthetic data provided by the VA Electronic Health University, which I think came about around 2009, roughly, in the Future Tech Lab. The data is static, though, so it doesn't allow for real-time or real-world scenarios to occur over time for any modality. Furthermore, it is often the case that developers will develop a handful of patients for the specific problems they've been contracted to solve. In this regard, there is no sure way to evaluate the validity and accuracy of the data, as they are hand-tooled by the contractors to work their systems. Nothing against contractors, right? But it is often the case that, of course, contractors hand-tooled data sets will work with their application as they've coded to do so. But it's difficult to assess whether that's actual in real life. So what we've asked is the developer community to work with us to develop PseudoVet 1.0. So the contract was awarded, top coder, through the Buy American Act. We're allowed to use their resources. We did state our requirements that we would have to exclude countries with terrorist affiliation. However, they bring 1.4 million coders to the party, and they have also partnered with subcontractors, HeroX and Operation Code. So just to give you kind of an idea of the timeline, what's really excited about this contract is that it's a competition. It's not a typical contract that we all endure together as external contractors in VA. It allows us to rifle through a cadre of solutions. And what we wanted to do was we split this competition up into 4 phases. We believe that we're going to actually be able to accomplish PseudoVet 1.0 within a 9-month time frame. So not only do we have an exaggerated performance for development or completion time, but we also get to rifle through hundreds, if not thousands, of solutions. Now that in itself is a daunting task, but exciting when you can look at myriad solutions from the coder community and choose what you want. VA often doesn't have that opportunity. So what will happen is during phase 1 is when we're going to have the top coder community develop the initial data set. So you probably want to know, well, what's the framework for that? What did you tell them that you wanted? We scoured VA for 2 years trying to find interested parties internal to VA that would help us with clinical relevance. But also, what is a viable patient data set? We reached out the corporate data warehouse, OIT, myriad aspects of VA, and we learned a lot about what VA's requirements were. We also learned that VA doesn't actually support its own standard. There aren't any exacting patient data sets. And the closest we came to was the Wheeler program, which Wheeler is responsible, if you're unaware, for packaging up actual patient data and turning it over to the private sector. And in all of our research, we found that the Wheeler CTD or data template was likely the most accurate and reasonable cornerstone to offer our developers in the external community. So that's what we put out as fill these fields, and we should be in pretty good shape. So the phase 2 will be synthetic patient data sets. So here's, and then phase 3, they build the PseudoVet engine. And phase 4, they integrate PseudoVet with Vista. Now I bet that raises a question. What about Cerner? Well, Cerner, we're not alarmists in VHA innovation. We listen for the weak signals. We try to exist on the bleeding edge, and we try to not operate from fear. And we did a lot of legwork to discover the relationship between DoD and Cerner, how long that took. We know that VHA or VA is going to have considerably more detail in their EHR. So we expect that could happen anywhere between 3 to 5 years or 5 to 7 years. So I wanted to go down this little slide right here to kind of give you some information on what we're expecting the contracted developer community to utilize or to do in each phase. So the initial data sets, the contractor focuses on generating initial data sets for developing web services that generate synthetic patient and provider data. Phase 2, once we have a winner for phase 1, so here's where we'll look at each phase. At the end of each phase, we take in all of our solutions provided by the coded community, and we pick a winner. What's going to be really interesting about this is just because there was a winner for phase 1 doesn't mean they're going to be the winner for 2, 3, and 4. And on top of that, when we pick a solution for each phase, we then ask the coder community to develop upon that phase. So then everyone has to switch gears and operate from that cornerstone of what was developed in 1. And subsequently, that will be to the same effect throughout the course of the competition. So phase 2 is the basic premise of this is where we actually develop a collection of RESTful web services to generate synthetic patient and clinical data using open source technologies and output in JSON format. So why JSON format? Well, VHA, Dr. Shopin said, we're going to use Cerner. However, it hasn't been contracted, it hasn't been funded. And because we have to move way out ahead in innovation, we have to make sure that we're preparing ourselves for possible change. So let's say that Cerner ends up not working out for VA. The fact that we have PseudoVet developing its data sets in JSON formats means it can be absorbed in just about anything right now in the open market as far as absorbing data. So that was our solution, or our forward approach to making sure that if VA changes its mind in a couple of 3 years, the PseudoVet could remain relevant. And phase 3 is build the engine. So here's where they focus. So the contractors focus on building the automated engine, put the synthetic and patient provider data into, and we're asking them to make it. I don't know if gamification is the right word, but that resonates well with me. It wouldn't be a visual avatar, but every data set or every patient in PseudoVet needs to be able to look, act, and feel real. So not only does it need to be as clinically relevant as possible, but it needs to go through lab appointments, no-shows, progress notes, lab values, and a cadre of other data. So this phase includes development of sophisticated algorithms that assesses the ability to support realistic and dynamic patient medical history. And finally, the last piece is Vista integration. And a question that might arise right here is, well, why Vista? What if we're going to go with Cerner or some other solution? Again, I refer back to JSON format. We're not that concerned. We believe that we are also not developing the final version of PseudoVet, but we're developing PseudoVet 1.0. And we know that we're not going to be able to capture everything we wanted, but it'll give us some foundational framework to build upon in the future. So we've chosen solutions from each phase. The final solution will be how they get that into Vista. And we're being careful not to corner or back our coders into a corner. There's many solutions, and as we've discovered other available, like there's Cynthia. Nancy offered a few that I wasn't aware of on a phone call recently. There's the FOIA database that everybody's using currently. The problem with the FOIA, again, it's static. We have, 20-year-old pregnant males that fought in World War II. That's not going to work. So we are making recommendations, but we're looking for solutions that could either be an external application that layers into Vista for integration. It could be part of it if the contracting community wants to develop using the FOIA database and try to heal it, they're welcome to. We ask that the output of this is that we have at least 10,000 patients, and we'd like them to be relational to the current veteran population. So that's no small task either. How do you take the entire veteran population, males, females, race, different morbidities, co-morbidities? And on top of that, we wanted them to make sure they're war era relational or relevant. We asked for everything from World War II to our current Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq veterans. Our largest population is Vietnam, so it may be that the output of this primarily focuses on Vietnam veterans around Agent Orange, and then future development work could include all of the other war eras and additional morbidities.
So, Stephen, this is Sam, and I need to...
It's Brian.
It's Brian, sorry, Brian. I'm the Director of Product Management at Ocera, and I just want to let you know we are starting a project. Actually, we're in the phases of getting the paperwork signed, and we're starting an open source project group, which I hope you can join, because what we're doing is we are using the output of Cynthia, which I think does phase 1, 2, and 3 in your previous slide, and we're jumping directly to phase 4 to import the data into Vista. Cynthia, of course, is obviously it's essentially a civilian. It's a simulation. It's a full simulation of a civilian database using sophisticated statistical models, and it does give us, it's not there yet, but it will give us the ability to do incremental updates as well of the patient's histories. I know this is unrelated to what you're doing here, but I think we already we actually have the developer who's going to work on it. I'm going to assist him because he's done a lot of patient importing into Vista, and we're going to start with getting the output out of Cynthia and putting it into and loading it into Vista. So essentially, very similar objectives, but again, we're focusing more on, we're not really focusing on, it's not going to be something that reflects like a veteran population, but rather it will reflect the general population.
Well, that's exciting to hear.
Yes, I'm hoping you can join us. It will be an open source project group, and all the code will be developed in the open.
Well, I'd love to learn more about that. And you said your name was Dan? Is that correct?
Sam, I work at Sarah, and you're not here.
Sam.
I can't give you my business card, but I think Nancy can email.
I'll give Sam maybe.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, this is such a wide open arena. Sam, it's ironic, we worked for 2 years trying to get get the right people together, the right information before spending a dime. And I swear that every time we do a contract, it's like everyone pops out of the woodwork right after it's awarded. I'm like, where were you 2 days ago?
So I'm sorry about that. I work for Osera, and they usually send me VA contracts to review. This never crossed my desk, so I would not.
And that's probably because it was done through NASA.
Oh, okay. Done through NASA. Well, I can't help that. Sorry.
However, if you wanted, let's say you just didn't have enough work and you wanted to work a full 24 hours instead of 20 hours a day, keep an eye out because no one has built anything yet for this. We just signed the award, and we just had our kickoff with our Prime and Subs Friday yesterday. And I hope that you wrote something in the contract about community collaboration, because a lot of those contractors just take something and disappear into the thin ether. Yeah, so we did.
Anything that they're doing.
We did, and we even recommended that they use Osera as a resource. This is so to understand that this is not a production system per se. This is meant to be a developer's tool. It's kind of fun because I'm always building something for the enterprise, and we're actually building a developer's tool for both internal and external developers. We want our entire developer community to be able to use this and for it to grow over time. And so I see no problem with us communicating. The only thing we can't talk about is money, but we can talk about information all day long.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm hoping I'll make sure that you're aware of our calls when we're having them, and we'll also try. I and the other developer will try if you guys are having calls about coordinating your work and doing stuff, we're trying to show up and give us our input as well, because we're very interested in this.
So Brian, did you see the presentation by the guy who presented Cynthia yesterday?
I did not. I was up to I worked till about 10 o'clock last night.
So I recorded them, but I have no idea yet how good the recording is. I have half a gigabyte of a day of recording. And I think I started, it turned out the recording wasn't going until, a little bit into his presentation. But so if it looks like it's halfway decent, I'll try to clip off his section and put it up so you can pick it up. But I think we have slides from
even if it's poor quality, I'd like you to send it. So my past life before joining full-time at VA, I was a performance. I was a singer in rock and roll bands for 20 years, and I made a living. And so I'm really adept at rifling through bad data and rough-sounding recordings and stuff. I even have tools to clean things up in my studio here at home.
Maybe,
and I think
I'll give
relevant.
you the whole half a gig.
Sure, yeah. Drop it on an SDK where I can grab it externally. I'm very interested.
And you can see, I think his presentation is the first thing on there. And I'll also, Joseph, did you get his slides from Cynthia? No, I thought you were running around the room catching people. That's Dylan. Okay, so there's if you look at the World Vista website, his slides should be there. You go and look at the conferences part, and I think under that there's a thing that says, what's it say underneath there? So you find the documents, Joseph? Conferences and then presentations. It's under there. And I'll upload the video. I may need to wait until I get home and have a good connection, but I'll see if I can get it up today from here. And then you can
sure.
See how it looks. Okay.
That's the World Vista website. That's let's see.
Yeah, then where's the conferences in the little left-hand corner? So
I'm struggling a little bit here. I'm just looking at your email from me that I forwarded.
Just go to worldvista.org.
Gotcha. World.
Oh, he said.
Yeah, worldvista.org.
Sure. Just.
Okay.
I have a lot going on this weekend. It'd be cool to just pull it down. So then where?
Left. It says.
Conferences.
Conferences, someplace. Yeah. And then presentations. Keep going. One more. There you go. Joseph says he
rock and roll. Look at all those goodies. And so we're the 35th, are we?
Right. There.
There it is.
It is.
I'm in good shape, gang. All right, I'm going to keep this up.
So if you're
all right, so that was a nice. Go ahead.
How are you going to? Connection is so lousy. How are you going to do downloading half a gig? You want me to put it on to you?
Oh, I'm on my own computer. I'm not on a VA computer right now. If I was on a VA computer, I wouldn't be able to do any of this.
Okay, so I'll put it up, and hopefully you can download it, and I'll send you an email when I get it up.
Yeah, my satellite actually has 150 gigs per month, and I usually don't tap that out. I don't have kids, so I don't have anybody gaming. Racking up my.
Right. But I also don't mind putting it on a 150 gigs a month. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, and if there's a video, I'd like to lob off any data I can get relational and add it to our web resources. And again, we're gonna let our. So we haven't had a meeting yet where we sit down with the coded community. I think that the technology in itself is going to be relatively easy to do. I think the hard part of this product is making it clinically relevant. And doctors are hard to pull in. Something that one of the subs, HeroX, brings to the table is they actually are offering up a external clinical expertise. So they have a marketing campaign as part of their that was part of their proposal that is going to allow for them to go out and try to pull in providers from the public community, and they may even have some touch points internally. That's also a fear of theirs, right? All of us, the tech, we're a bunch of geeks in the room, but making it something snappy technologically versus something snappy that's also clinically relevant is huge. And that's why, we asked them in the requirements we want to cover, here's the big picture, but we're going to accept if we have our primary, say the Vietnam era primary population, our greatest population, wrapped up pretty well, make sure it's clinically relevant, and that we're tackling the war era issues like Agent Orange and whatnot, and different things like diabetes perhaps comes up. That's not war related, but what's affecting that population the most right now? we want to take a big piece of the pie, knowing that plenty of crumbs are going to fall by the wayside, and that there's going to have to be follow-on development.
So I think you'll see when you look at the Cynthia things that they're using information from like the CDC and the NIH. But frankly, once you see how they're doing it, I think if you get your statisticians to provide them some additional information on those two populations, you're going to get a lot better patients out of that.
I agree. Go ahead.
Well, I say, we know that a patient with these things is going to have a certain risk of having diabetes or something, and then they generate patients based on those risk models. But you're going to have to give them the data to make those risk models better. I think, for instance, if MITRE were to help out with this. Anyway, I think you're going to be very impressed, as to say.
I think I am too, and I'm excited to rifle through it. I know that we're going to make the FOIA database available. It's already available on Sarah as well as GitHub.
Yeah,
and we're providing
database.
Well, we know what's wrong with the FOIA, right? We know the FOIA database basically sucks. Let's just say that. So, but let's say we've got some snappy coders out there that need a touch point, that might help. But we want to offer up Cynthia and some other resources that we've scoured and located. We're trying to impress upon our developers that are coming to the table that for the first time, VA doesn't care where it comes from as long as it works. We want to see a ton of exciting ideas and solutions, because I think a lot of times there's people who are more administrative like myself that are tasked with building requirements, and the real technical architects are hiding under a rock somewhere and out of our purview or out of our reach. Or you'll get, well, for instance, the slide that's up right now. So who are our clinical champions? Before I run this down, you could read that while I'm running it down, so I don't have to read it out to you, but I want to take an aside here and let you know that our initial data set should incorporate ICD-10 codes and subclassifications, database inputs from SNOMED, procedure and diagnostic codes, lab values, billing codes, and it should be a data collection with medically relevant identified connection points. And so the areas of focus for the initial data generation and mapping exercise will include morbidities and comorbidities from era-specific veterans, ailments like Agent Orange, Gulf War. We'd like to have World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Gulf War. Chances are we're only going to get Vietnam this to go around. High focus morbidities and comorbidities. So we're like, well, hearing loss. We blow up a lot of ears in DoD, right? So hearing loss is the number one thing we pay out for benefits, and then knees. We've heard a lot of knees. So we're looking at some of the subcategories of like rheumatoid arthritis, amputation, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, multiple joint disease, diabetes, cancer, and if there's an opportunity to dive into mental health, specifically PTSD and suicide. Now, all that's a really tall order for a 9-month development order. So we're being realistic in our expectations, but we wanted to throw as much into the party as we could.
But do you see what I'm saying to you? That you are the source of what these people, you have more data about what these people have than anybody else. And you could statistically have the statisticians tell you what your Vietnam era people are suffering from percentage-wise, and maybe what age it starts, and you can do all those things without revealing anything personal, just by a statistical analysis of what you got in your corporate data warehouse. And then they can build the patients based on that. So, for instance, Cynthia has these models that has these percentages. You give them those percentages, and then they can generate patients that fit what you want. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. And that's something so interesting you'd say corporate data warehouse. So, Jared Vieto.
Did you hear Marilyn talking about how they came up with their models for the surgical risks? I know you weren't there the whole time.
I was there most of the time.
Okay, so she talked about their statisticians that they've got to generate the models for those risks, and they're using the corporate data warehouse.
Where did she pull them from? Where did they work? Where did they work in VA?
They work apparently in the surgery office for VA at Vaco, I think, because I think that's where Dr. Gunner is. And then they use the corporate data warehouse. Now, another team that has done that same sort of thing is the mental health team that had worked on a project called Storm that hasn't been deployed, but they did exactly the same thing, looking at suicide and using the corporate data warehouse to generate models for who is likely to commit suicide and what their background looks like. So there's people in the VA or, whatever, throughout the VA that have generated these models using the corporate data warehouse. And I think if you could do that for what we were just talking about, then you're going to get much better data sets because people on the outside aren't going to know.
I love it, Nancy. And so you've given me an action item so we've gone out to providers thinking they'd be able to provide that. What I'm hearing you saying, and it's interesting when the external community makes recommendations about our internal community that you would think we should already know. But I can tell you,
let me know. I tell you what happens all the time. I hardly have any huge amount of knowledge, but even what little I've got, because it comes from many different directions, I very often tell people inside the VA stuff that they don't know about the VA. It happens a lot. So,
well, thank you, Nancy. So come Monday morning, I'm going to be rifling through each of my statistician needs, and I'll be making personal phone calls to those departments because I'm up against the clock now, right? I'm up against the clock.
I'll send you the name of the people that did the Storm thing.
We'd love that. We'd love that. And I bet they know other statisticians in the medical community.
Right. Between that and talking to the surgery office, practically, we probably talk to Marilyn and find out how that works. You get those, and they'll probably spider you out to other people. So
that may be the best thing that comes from this conversation for me personally, just related to this product. That's a great recommendation. I don't know.
Oh, I think there's a whole office. From what I understand, there's a whole office of analytics that has probably about 100 people combing through data. And I'll try to get a hold of the person who told me that and see if he can give me some contact. You may already have information. Okay.
So I'm part of OIA. It goes Office of Information Analytics, Office of Connected Care, DHA Innovation. So I need to reach out through my own community. I'll take whatever information you can get me, and I'll be pound on the ground come Monday morning to bring these people in. Because as you can see by the slide that's on the screen right now, I reached out. We have something called VA Pulse. It's kind of like Facebook for VA. And I could do massive blasts across the organization to try to find people, phone calls, whatever I need to do. And these are the people that came to the table that deeply wanted to be involved. And so these are our clinical champions at Current. But as you can see by the outline of what their expertise is, doesn't exactly match what we need per se. What we need is what you've just spoken of. And if I could bring them to the table, I'm guessing they might have a little more bandwidth than actual providers as well. I'd like to use my clinical champions as kind of a think tank, a group of provider-based brainstormers that make recommendation of clinical relevance, but they might not necessarily cover all of the pieces that you've discussed with statisticians. So that's a great do out for me, and I'll be tackling that first thing Monday a.m.
Great.
All right. So go ahead, Nick. Yeah, that was awesome. Let's stay in touch, gang. I mean, PseudoVet is really made for you all. Not as much. It's probably going to be designed more for you all in the developer community externally than it is internally. Internally, no one wants to think about this, right? If PseudoVet actually works, you shouldn't have to think about it. And there may be some little things you plug in to say, I need this kind of group or block of patients. But it's designed to run in the background and to not be a bother. And we also have to pay out the wazoo for as an additional piece of requirements. Typically, developers come to us and say, well, you don't have patient data. We don't care if you have FOIA or not. We know what that is. There's a good chance that they just go on the side and develop something that we can't calculate whether or not it's really going to work in a production environment. So that's the desire. Is PseudoVet is complete at some point past 1.0. and it could be absorbed by VA internal developers and external developers, and utilized to, well, let me just take it aside. So let's say there's a product that comes in, a new development product for, I don't know, diabetes, and they don't want to have to mess around or think about what that veteran should look and act and feel like. They need real veterans to participate. And if you could say I'm a developer, I developed this program for VA, I'm a provider or business office in VA. We have used PseudoVet, which we know is the most clinically relevant patient database that we have at our disposal. So it stands within good reason that we ran it through 500 different veterans, and these are the outputs. It makes a better case for asking to become production ready, to get into the enterprise, into that pilot state, and not have as much do-over. It'll never replace real veterans, but it needs to be 99.9% if we can get it. Mm-hmm. So the last slide here, you won't be able to access VA Pulse if you don't have a VA email address. That's all that's required to get in. But we use it kind of like Facebook, as I said, and right now I'm using this portal to build out and socialize PseudoVet at onset. So your 2 point of contacts, I'd like you to capture both these names. One is myself, and there's my phone number, and there's my email, and I'm the administrative point of contact. I am the product manager. And then there's our technical point of contact, Adrian, but he goes by Aj. That's his phone number and email. Aj is now running, he's our new technical director as of just a couple of months ago, running our Future Tech Lab, or FTL. And he is going to be our tech lead from our side of the fence. So those are 2 great contacts. I know that Aj is also fishing for information the same way I am, and would be happy to receive you. He's a great demeanor. He's easy to talk to. He's really good at breaking down tech into layman terms, which I appreciate. So I'm just that's basically my presentation. You know, I can't wait to come back and show you something. It's so early in the game for us. Nancy, thanks for inviting me out to this and letting us explore this with you and discuss this. I'll take any information anytime. I'm happy to share, and I'll leave with 1 point. We did go as far as to reach out to Jack Bates at the Corporate Data Warehouse, and he's expressed interest once we've completed 1.0 in reviewing it and developing the standard operating procedure for how internal and external developers will interact with patient data. And he had mentioned that he might like to use PseudoVet if it's beefy enough as a cornerstone. And we may even approach him as a future business owner, since likely that would be the best place for PseudoVet to be owned and possibly reside. And they have the personnel and the expertise to flesh these things out the way they should be. So we have a very loose partner there. We've expressed interest. We have to come through, keep them updated, and let them know what we're doing. So any other questions for y'all?
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right. So it's lunch, and I'm trying to see how many people are on, whether we should hang up the phone or I'll just leave it open. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And those of you who are online, I think we reconvene at, what, 1:15, I think? Something like that. I'll have to look. 1 or 1:15, but I'll look at the schedule and be here. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, all. Bye-bye.
Who is here, guys?
Oh, yes, I know. So I'm working on the last day I'm working on. So I think for the first week, and all, but there's a part where it says,